Hello, everyone. My name is Magda. Um, um, I'm the moderator for these beautiful classes. I've been in the company, I don't know, maybe 6, 8 months, and I've been working with Andy in the retreats the last 5 months, more or less, and it's been really beautiful. Every time we work together, something opens up, and we start sharing more, and I do feel there's something beautiful there growing. So I give the word to Andy. Andy, thank you so much for being here, and let's start.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining. So, if anyone who has never seen me before or met me before, my name is Andy. I've been a facilitator for uh, uh, like almost 6 years at this point, and I've recently done a previous masterclass a couple of months ago, and I really like this format as a chance to just kind of talk a little bit about different topics that interest me or are somehow meaningful. Um, the title of this conference, this masterclass, is Do Not Change Anyone or Anything. And in particular fashion, these conferences or the titles are meant to be um, a little bit evocative because they bring up a lot of feelings, a lot of ideas, a lot of beliefs and perspectives that are worth looking at and talking about. Um, Originally, I was supposed to give a different topic, but for kind of logistical reasons and one facilitator is traveling and someone else isn't available, I was given this topic. And when they told me what the title was, again, do not change anyone or anything, I felt very resonant with it. Um, because I think if I were to give, like what might be my personal most important principle or belief or philosophy or worldview when it comes to this healing process, this process of self discovery, of reconnecting with who we are. Um, I'd say this is the most important one, at least to me, right? It might not be the most important one in truth, and I've yet to discover and integrate what the actual most important thing is. But at least for the last few years and now in my life, this is the most important thing. So I feel like I can speak about it with a level of experience and confidence as well. So I want to kind of set the stage a little bit. What is it that we're talking about specifically, right? So that we don't get lost in topics or down rabbit holes that don't really lead anywhere. Essentially, I'm going to speak primarily about the first part of the topic, the do not change anyone, because that's what's relevant to the healing journey, right? We're working with other people, we're working with ourselves, and in the end, it's people that affect change in some way, whether small, individual, local, or much wider than that. I don't really want to speak too much about changing the world and changing the society and all of these things because it seems a little bit ambitious or complex. Maybe I'll get to it. But where I want to start at least is don't change an individual. So I'm going to be speaking about this, primarily from the perspective of a facilitator, because that's where this comes up the most, let's say, but this is perfectly applicable to, first of all, my life beyond the fact that I'm a facilitator, although sometimes my life beyond my work is, maybe those lines are a little bit blurred, but it certainly applies to anyone, to everyone, as we'll see. So let's imagine, to start, that you're with someone, and maybe you are a facilitator, maybe you're a practitioner, a therapist, maybe you're in training, maybe you've been doing it for many, many years. Or if not, uh, maybe you're just imagining yourself with a friend, with a person that you care about, or at least in this moment, someone has come to you to look for support in some way. So let's start by kind of playing out what it might look like if I did try to change someone. Like, where is that coming from? What could that mean? What effects might that have? So, again, from the perspective of the facilitator, we're in a retreat and a participant is presenting, is sharing something about their life, something about themselves that, you know, let's say is a challenge for them. Maybe it's creating a lot of suffering. Maybe it just feels like a roadblock or an obstacle on their journey. Now, if I were to try and change that person, there's so many unspoken beliefs behind that intention. And this is where, the training and experience of a facilitator, of a therapist, of what have you, is so important, because we all have these tendencies, and we'll get to that later. Um, and so they're going to be unconscious, like we're not aware of the ways in which we do these things. And so a big part of training in working with other people is becoming aware of these tendencies and how they interfere. So, for example, one of these beliefs is that I know best what's for someone else, which, I would hope is kind of obvious in how absurd that is. The idea that I could know what's best for someone else. Um, but let's just imagine for a moment that I did. That through years of experience, through a deep connection with some truth, I could glean an insight into what is best for this person, like what they should do next in their life, how they should go about resolving this situation. And so, even if I did know that, which I don't, and we'll get to that, then if I were to tell them, if I were to impose that on them, it's completely denying the fact that in the end they are the main actor in their own life. They are the prime mover for their own world. And it's a denial of the fact that this person could and can do whatever it is they need to do, either a new thing that they haven't started yet, or an old thing that they will let go of. It's denying the personal responsibility and even, we could say, sovereignty that this person has to find, to know, and then to make real, to act on this thing that they've realized. But again, let's imagine that that I didn't realize that, or I thought that this person wasn't capable of doing this on their own, which is a really tricky way of looking at other people. You know, if I'm going through the world and I'm looking at others and I'm seeing them through the eyes of, this person isn't capable of doing the things that they need to do. It's not a very nice way, not a very useful way of looking at other people. But again, let's just say that I didn't realize that. And again, let's just say that I did know for certain what is best for this person. Okay, then I tell them, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to stop doing. This is the order you need to do them in. This is the particular way that it looks. And even if the person does it and follows it to the letter, it's not going to stick because it didn't come from them. It came from, at best, them putting their trust in you, which on the one hand is a very beautiful thing. On the other hand, it's something quite delicate. But at worst, it's a form of pretend, of acting, of the term we would use is compliance. That what a person is demonstrating is that they are healing. You know, they're trying to prove to themselves and possibly to the facilitator, to the therapist, that they understand, that they're a good participant, that they're a good client. And the reasons for that are quite complex. But the simple version would be to say that there is some need in this person. I mean, in all of us, of course, but right now in this person that is more important than affecting the change that we're talking about, that I'm telling them in this example they should do. And that need is to be accepted, and not just in a general sense, but accepted by the one who in that moment is acting as the authority figure. It's well understood, as it should be, that participants, clients, you know, the people that we're working with are going to unconsciously, to one degree or another, project a certain position onto the facilitator or the therapist of authority, of trust, of caregiver, of the person that will save me in some way. And so when this need of being accepted by that reference figure is kind of running the show from the background, from the unconscious, then I'm going to do whatever you say. Ah, yes, thank you so much. I didn't see it that way before. You're so right. Ah, I need to get on that right away. You know, and again, it's not going to last. It's not going to stick. But even if it did, what we're left with is a situation where this person is still, we could even say, trapped in the need for being accepted by this reference figure, by this authority figure, by this caregiver, what have you. And again, that need, there is nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying we need to be rid of this need, certainly not. but it's operating from the unconscious. The person doesn't realize that they're doing it. And worse still, in this example that I'm laying out, the facilitator therapist isn't aware of the fact that it's happening. They're sat there, thinking all manner of things, probably along the lines of, I'm such a good therapist, I'm such a good person, I'm helping them, look how well they're responding, they're taking everything I say on board, they're really getting it, and they're really making steps in their life, and how good for them, but how good for me, because now I feel like the one who's instigating all of those positive things. This need to be accepted, to be liked, to be included by the reference figure, again, is not a problem as long as we can be conscious of it. And we're not going to put that responsibility onto the participant, onto the client. It's necessary for the facilitator to hold that very lightly and to understand, to recognize a moment when the participant is demonstrating compliance, is demonstrating that right now what they're saying, what they're doing is more of an act, let's say, to satisfy this need. And in those situations, all we can do is not to feed that in any way, to not add fuel to the fire, let's say. And again, all of this traces back to this initial point of thinking that I can somehow be the one who could change someone, either directly by my own action and making them be different somehow, or more indirectly by showing them or convincing them of the ways in which they need to change themselves. So, of course, to be clear, none of this works. At a minimum, it doesn't work, but we could also go down the ethical grounds of why this is just completely irresponsible, why it's not okay to do this to clients, because it can reinforce these old patterns. I won't get into it too much, but just briefly, what to do with this need. And let's talk about it from like an individual perspective. What should a person do with the need that they have to be accepted by a particular person or a particular kind of person that's representative of, someone from their past, a parent, for example? Well, in line with this topic, you may never change the person from whom you want the acceptance, at least in the form that you want it or need it, may never give it to you. So at best, well, in that case, we can only really work with that need and treat it very softly, very lovingly, not trying to deny it and pretend like, oh, I don't need this. This is just this wounded part that's talking. I need to transcend this part of me and this childish need to be accepted. See how that works out for you. But similarly, recognizing that, okay, it might not come about in the way that we want. Now, in the best case, if the facilitator is conscious of this, slowly over time, the participant can become conscious of this as well. Or maybe not slowly, maybe right away in a particular moment of insight and realization, but nonetheless, that they can become aware of it as well. And from there can work with it consciously. And for me, like in my early days of training, there were people, and one person in particular who was my main kind of mentor, my main teacher. I absolutely projected my dad onto him, like, and I was totally aware that I was doing it, and he was, I'm sure, on some level aware that it was happening, but there was no judgment towards it, no rejection of it, and also no kind of actively playing into it. It was just allowed to be, and it allowed me to see many, many things about myself and my own relationship with my actual dad. Uh, and that's another story that's quite long, but the point is that because this had a level of awareness, a very light, non-judgmental holding towards this psychological phenomena that we all have. It was able to move and actually be quite healing in that sense. So I've been laying out this kind of imagined example where things don't work, okay? Either in the sense that they just don't work flat out, or in the sense that they don't stick, they're not long-term changes, or in the sense that it's more of a demonstration, more of a faking, let's say. Again, it's completely unconscious, but it's driven by these deeper needs of being accepted. Okay, so what does work then in these relationships, in these encounters between the one who's holding the space and the one who has brought themselves to the space um, for yeah, for healing, for knowing themselves, for connection. What works is precisely this topic of to not change anyone. And what is that really deeply saying? It's saying that you, as the way that you are in this moment, are exactly how you need to be. That you are allowed, not by me per se, but allowed to be the way that you are. That you don't have to change yourself to be accepted, to be included. In a sense, it's the direct opposite of this other situation, right? The person is changing themselves or trying to demonstrate a change in order to be accepted. And in the exact reverse, what we're saying is, no, please don't change yourself. You're already accepted. Now, again, let's be honest about it. Let's be sincere. In some cases, that isn't easy, right? That's why a good facilitator, a good therapist has gone through years and years of a personal process so that they're in a position to be able to accept these more difficult or more challenging things that people bring. Now, on the whole, after a certain point, after many years of doing this, participants come to retreat, clients come for sessions, and the facilitator, the therapist, doesn't find themselves moved, doesn't find themselves falling into any unconscious role, just finds himself being able to hold, being able to listen in a very soft way, very light way, with no judgment, that brings sacredness to the encounter, to the experience. Um, and there's a deep importance in that that we'll come to shortly. But perhaps in some moments with certain, we could say profiles, or we could just say certain patterns or certain energies that people bring, the one who's holding the space is moved. Like a particular person, a particular way that a person has is triggering for the one holding the space. Um, on a practical level, this is why it's super important to have a team, you know, that, okay, this facilitator is being triggered by this person, but this facilitator is completely neutral, can hold that non-judgmental, compassionate space. And so at least there's, that energy in the room, right? And if the team is conscious of this and aware of this, they can navigate it perfectly. In the therapeutic world, of course, a therapist has a supervisor, to discuss and explore when these particular things happen. Um, and we can put it down to random chance or occurrence, and then work with it in a useful way. Um, However, on a deeper level, what is it saying? What is happening? Why am I being triggered by this particular person? Well, probably no surprise that this is showing me something in myself. I imagine that's quite obvious to everyone, at least in the, theoretical sense. Obviously, it's harder to see when the activation is there, but it's simply this person or this aspect of this person, this way of acting that they have is showing to me a part of myself that I have not accepted, and so I'm trying to change one way or the other. Because change doesn't necessarily have to look like transformation, right? Like, for example, let's say a person is quite quiet and quite timid. And so a way in which they try to change themselves is to be more outspoken, to present themselves as more confident, as more assured, and all of these things. Um, but another way of understanding this is not in like the active change, okay, I used to be quiet in group settings, now I'm gonna like make myself, force myself to be the one who's like, speaking with everyone and making jokes and being the center of attention and all of this. No, another way of changing things per se is simply repressing them, is burying them. Certainly, um, because if I am, at least in this moment of my life, more timid, more quiet, um, how can I all of a sudden make myself more loud, more outspoken, more sociable without repressing this timid part? In that sense, what I'm saying is it's not a real change. It's it's a denial of the way that I have been. Again, a non-acceptance of this part of myself. And so I repress that in order to act in a different way, in a new way, in a way that I believe will get me the thing that, at least apparently, the current way isn't. Yes. So, uh, on the level of the interaction between between the facilitator and the participant. If I am repressing or denying a certain part of myself, that is what can lead me to try and change this other person or this behavior or this aspect of this other person. It's this belief, this misunderstanding that okay, I can't change this part of myself, or this part of myself is causing me problems. I'm not accepting it, but I can, again, in this belief, I can change this person. I can stop them from being this way, you know. And again, it's a simplification, but it's useful to see it this way. Broadly speaking, we could say that there are like mirrors or reflections, like a direct one-to-one, or there are complementary opposites. So in the case of the reflection, I observe the same behavior, the same trait, the same aspect in this other person, and so I try to change them, believing that by changing someone in the outside, that's somehow changing this part of me. Or in the other case, where it's a complementary opposite, I'm trying to change the thing that is apparently against me, right? So again, this example of being timid, quiet, shy, and then I'm observing a person who's very loud and outspoken and boisterous, trying to change them is like trying to take away, to remove the thing that forces me, apparently, to be in this role, right? So to lay it out, I am in this shy, timid, quiet role, and I believe that by being in this, I'm somehow not getting the things that I want. Okay, now I observe this person who's taking up the space, who's being very loud, who's kind of dominating things. So I imagine, I see that they are the problem because, well, if they weren't there and they weren't being so loud, then I would have the space to speak up. And I'm believing that somehow speaking up is what's needed in order for me to, get the things that I want, which probably all amount back to this same topic of being accepted. So, a lot of this is talking about kind of interpersonal dynamics, especially as they relate in a therapeutic context, kind of like the responsibility that a facilitator has to the people that they're holding the space for. Um, and the kind of, yeah, like responsibilities, the ethical responsibilities, the responsibility to ourselves and to each other. And all of that is super, super important. It's also worth touching on the fact that there is a much deeper, more essential spiritual element to all of this, like something about our work in particular, or my work in particular. It's not only therapeutic in that kind of classical sense, right? Certainly, many therapists are going to bring a deeper quality to their work, but psychology, psychotherapy as a kind of overarching discipline tends to be a little bit more scientific, not so in the spiritual stuff, which is fine. But in our work, in my work, in these retreats, there is this spiritual quality. And what it's saying is that these changes that on some level we do want uh, are going to come. They're going to manifest. They are going to happen, but born out of something else. And this is where it's tricky, right? Because imagine that I'm not accepting some part of myself. And I believe that this thing inside me, this behavior, this pattern, this blockage, is what's keeping me outside or away or disconnected from the thing or things that I want. And then I catch wind of this kind of more spiritual quality of like, if I accept this thing the way that the way that it is, if I accept myself the way that I am, then the things I want, the thing that I want will, happen or come to me somehow. And so then the act of acceptance is not a real acceptance. It's a new strategy to get what I want. But of course, then we're left with the impossible question: how can you accept something that is, to some part of you, on some level, to other people around you, perhaps, apparently unacceptable, you know? And it's very delicate. Generally speaking, when you really get into it with yourself and with most people, the things that we think are unacceptable are completely benign. It becomes kind of absurd, and in that absurdity, in the light of that, potentially there can be something really profound and healing. But yeah, like people think they're not going to be accepted for the way that they look, the way that they talk, the way that they sing, like all these beautiful, intrinsic, natural things, and that in and of itself is a super deep well, why are we so convinced that just by being the way that I am, I won't be accepted? But you could also ask, you'd say, okay, but Andy, what about the actually unacceptable things, right? Now it's getting a little bit more complicated, right? To give just kind of like an overview of it, that is the great challenge of being with other people and in the end, being with ourselves, that in the darkest depths of the shadow, there is a profound healing there. There are profound truths there. There are absolutely essential qualities of my wholeness that are buried down there. And if we've been cut off from that for so long, or perhaps in very intense and potentially traumatic ways, the things that will manifest later down the line become equally intense. That is to say, if you have a client, for example, or a participant who has potentially a violent tendency to be able to accept that is going to require something spiritual, because there will certainly be parts of all of us that say that it's not acceptable. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. Like on a human level, we do need to deal with things that are complicated and tricky, right? How to navigate that, I think the best thing to navigate that is to understand, to first not allow or not cause any more harm. And if that stands as kind of our first post, then then the acceptance stuff we can get to later. First let's prevent or stop this current harm that's going on, because perhaps we're sending a message if we're saying, let's accept this violent tendency in this person, they're, violent to their partner or something like this, to accept this person the way that they are, but we're completely denying that there's an ongoing situation that needs attending to. And again, that's why the spiritual element is so important, because on a human level, on a personal level, can I say I accept this, in this case, violent tendency of this person? Can I accept my own violence in whatever forms it exists? Again, for most of us, it doesn't exist. We don't actively do it in the world, but it comes out in all of these shadow ways. So the only thing that can really help in those instances is these deeper spiritual connections, or connection to something spiritual, something much, much deeper. Because otherwise I'm going to get lost in the game of trying to change things, And if we can understand that these extreme instances of a repression of the shadow are, in the end, rooted in the same things that are in me, then hopefully where that leads to is compassion. Because if I'm observing that in someone else, if that's happening in front of me, I'm seeing a person so lost in suffering, and then they're creating that suffering around them and to other people, am I able to see that with compassion? And look, if the answer to that is no, like, let's just be honest about it, but recognize that that's pointing us towards a place where we have more in a journey, in a work, in a relationship to do, to reconnect with that compassion. Because if I ever lose sight of the fact that my shadow, your shadow, my essence, your essence are essentially the same, then I'm lost at sea in this world, and certainly in this work. And by acting and working and living from this place of to not change anything, to not change anyone, that there is a deep acceptance and compassion for the way that things are, the way that people are, the way that I am, then all of these things that have just lived under pressure and intensity and exile and separation can at least begin to relax. And this is how the extreme manifestations of the shadow subside, and then more deeply can be integrated and can relax further. And then at the deepest level, we can see that in this shadow, in this unacceptable, in inverted commas, thing, there is, because most of us are still in this process, this infinite treasure, how curious, it's almost funny in a way, that the universe, that the soul has conspired to arrange things, that in the last place I want to go is the very thing that I want most. If you were writing a hero's journey, it would probably go something like that. Um, it seems like a natural stopping point. Yes. So again, in this topic, it's super deep, and every avenue that you walk down is itself a whole conference, a whole masterclass. So probably people have some interesting points of view or questions or things they'd like to hear more about. So let's continue with that. And if nothing else, thank you for listening, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andy, for sharing that. Like, I was hearing and it was like, oh, that makes sense in my life right now. It is like really deeply resonating with a lot of relationships, and the most important relationship with myself. Because as you were saying, it's just having this compassion, not with someone else, but also with ourselves. So thank you so much for that. Um, okay, I have quite some questions. So guys, if you still have some questions, you can write them down. Um, so this one is interesting. Would you accept to be lied, or would you trust someone that is lying to you or is fake towards yourself?
If what's important to me is the truth, is my truth, I can live by that, regardless of whether people agree with it or even go against it or lie. Um, so you can accept, you can receive in a way, um, this person lying, presenting something different, maybe without realizing, or perhaps intentionally, or who can say which one. And it doesn't matter because I'm here with my truth. If someone else's lies and perspective is touching something, um, it's probably reflecting a way in which um, I'm not so fully connected with or convinced of my own truth. Again, I'm not saying that that's easy. Certainly, if a person is in a position of power, then it gets very complicated, of course. But generally, uh, to accept the fact that they are lying requires to be connected with this truth that is true to me. Then from there, do whatever feels right. If you want to tell them, hey, don't lie to me, or I don't want to speak to you anymore if it's going to be like this, or I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Great. I didn't really touch on it in the topic, but we're not saying don't do anything. This isn't like sit in a room and stare at the ceiling all day. It's that the intention of action, where is it coming from? Is it coming from a deep centeredness and rootedness, in this case, in my truth, in myself? Or is it a non-acceptance and rejection of some part? And then you could go to the moon, you could amass all the wealth in the world, affect all this political, social, economic change that you want, and it would do nothing. Because inside there is still something that's being denied. And if I'm a whole being, perhaps not integrated yet, but if I am all of me, And there is a part of me that I'm denying. How is that going to work? How can anything move from there? Um, and not only that, but this part or these parts that are separated, that are exiled, that are repressed, will find very interesting and sometimes quite dramatic ways of showing themselves. Um, yes.
Yes, thank you. I think the next question has to do with what you just shared. It's not about not doing anything, but from the intention that it comes. So if you want to read the next question, it comes from the German translation space. So for her, the desire of improvement is a form of love and caring toward things and people.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So seeing opportunities for improvement is a way of showing appreciation for what exists. Love can inspire me to want to make things even better, not out of desire to embellish them or add value.
Mhm.
It is of wanting to improve an expression of affection, mindfulness toward what surrounds me, situations, people, houses, decoration, food, etc.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Again, there are elements of this topic that I didn't get into, right? Yeah, I mean, whenever I go to a retreat, I'm always super happy if there's someone on the team who's like got a really good eye for making the space look beautiful. I mean, I also like to do that, but I know that it's not my strongest suit, right? So if there's someone else on the team, it's like, hey, go nuts with that, and then I show up and it's all very beautiful and arranged. It's like, thank you so much. Is that because we're not accepting the bland or perhaps ugly state that the room was in when we arrived? I mean, it could be, but not necessarily, you know. Um, I think that, you know, we can be like really, really deeply honest with ourselves. In fact, this is what this whole topic is asking, that we're just honest with ourselves. Um, and I think one of the ways to see that is, okay, is this thing like fulfilling me? Do I feel good with it? And also, is it really like sticking? Is it really like a long-term thing that's continued, whether things are good, whether things are bad? I've always stuck with this, you know, part of my life where I take care of myself in this way, diet, exercise, whatever, or is it born out of, again, this non-acceptance towards part or all of myself? But absolutely, like, to put our love into things is gonna change them, right? Maybe that's the essence of what change really is, to act from love, to allow love to act through us. Look at this space, look at this person. And I have it inside me, in this urge and this spontaneity to share love, to manifest love in this way, putting flowers there, giving them a hug, small things, or maybe very big things. But in the end, the essence is the same. In that sense, yeah, that's the ideal energy to enact, to act in the world. Again, do not change anything isn't saying don't do anything. And I guess I did speak a lot about the more the shadow side. So in that sense, Lee from the German translation, thank you for uh, showing the other side of it, right? Um, you're absolutely right in that sense.
Yeah. So Chris is asking, is it a difference to improve, let's say, a house and trying to improve another human being? Yes?
Um, in some sense, I mean, of course, there's going to be differences there. Uh, for one, like the house can't rebel if you're trying to change it. Although maybe it can in some ways. Maybe it can. But yes, again, I did focus a lot more on like the relationships between people and specifically, facilitators, therapists. participants, clients. But when we're like working with the world, how much of me is wrapped up in the thing, right? Could be a thing like a house, or it could be a person, right? That's what I was saying before. The activation, the non-acceptance, the trying to change, is it coming from, or the trying to change or to improve, is it coming from an activation, a non-acceptance, or as Lee was saying, from like a love, sharing love? Again, that's where the honesty is. That's where a trigger or an activation is a useful signal, because okay, there's no denying this. So yeah, so when you're looking at like improving or doing something with your house in this instance, it's just to be really honest about it. Maybe a certain level of your identity is wrapped up in your house, and you're wanting to demonstrate that to the world, or someone or some people in particular. But fundamentally, you're gonna see it in the end, right? Like if it's real, don't worry about it. If it's not real, you're gonna see it. And that's part of this not trying to change anything. It's like allow it to come to you, you know? And maybe one potential pitfall of this topic, and me being so in love with it, is that it could potentially lead to passivity, right? So you don't take action, when in fact taking action will lead you down the road where you then can see, right? But if I just sit there and do nothing and wonder about it, it all remains a theory. And even if it's true, I won't fully integrate it because I'm not seeing it in the world. So absolutely, Chris, improve your house in whatever way feels right, and then see what happens,
And it's interesting when you talk about your house. My first thought was, my house is also my internal house. What if I change my internal house?
Can
Would
be.
would it be reveal against itself? Yeah, I find this question pretty interesting. Would you withhold presenting your own ethical or moral values to others if you sense it may bring discomfort or it may cause a conflict?
Mhm. So at the very beginning, I was talking about, okay, let's imagine that I did know what was best for this person. And then I did it, and then, and I went down that road. Okay, what if we just spend some time with that for a moment? Do I know what's best for someone? No, I don't. Even if I have an insight or an intuition based on experience, based on, previous work, based on my understanding of things, the mind and human beings and all of this, I could be wrong, you know? Do I know everything? Am I infallible? That would probably not be a good thing to imagine. But of course, it doesn't mean that I don't say it, right? It's tricky. In the moment, a lot of this work when working with people is intuition. It's coming from this deeper place, because if I'm trying to figure it out beforehand, it can get tricky. So at a minimum, if I am going to present something, it's it's presented, it's offered, it's relaxed, it's not imposed, right? And I am fully ready and willing to accept that a person says, no, I don't agree with that. That doesn't resonate at all. And maybe that's because it really doesn't resonate, or maybe it's because it's touching on a topic that they're not ready to look at, in which case that's also okay, and leave them in peace. So yeah, so that's where this responsibility comes in. Maybe I really can see what's best for this person. Like I get, divine knowledge from the universe. Aha, this is exactly what's happening in this situation with this person. Okay, the next and far more important question is, what, if anything, to do with that? you know? Um, and the way that I usually do that is, okay, the opening will reveal itself. It's like, okay, this person is talking about this topic, even if they don't realize it. They're kind of circling around this thing. Okay, but maybe now isn't the moment to go into it. And then the next person that starts sharing immediately goes into that topic. Okay, well, here we are. And I'm talking to them and not this person. So, it's like, okay, the topic found a way to present itself. Or maybe we go somewhere completely else, and all those thoughts and insights and intuitions that I had about this person's situation just go to the ether, dissolve, and are irrelevant right now. And maybe they'll come back again later that day or in the retreat, or maybe they'll visit that person again in 10 years. That readiness, that timing is something super deep, super spiritual, and I need to humble myself in front of that and say, I don't know when the moment for that is. All I can do is respond to the openings if they show up. So, yeah, sometimes we do withhold things, but not really on ethical grounds, more on this sense of like sensitivity to what is most appropriate, what is most supportive. I suppose that is moral in a way, but I think of it more from like a humanistic or compassionate point of view rather than like ethical per se.
Thank you, Andy, so much. I think that's enough. We have a lot of questions already. Um, so yeah, you want to share something else? Say something?
Um, yes, I want to just kind of double down on this point about do not change others or anything doesn't mean don't do anything, right? Um, Okay, so if you're doing things in your life that are going on repeat, it's the same pattern in different places, different forms with different people, but it's the same pattern over and over again. Okay, you're being invited in to look at what's going on there. In that sense, you stop doing things in that form, at least for a moment, to reflect and understand what's going on. What are the deeper roots of these situations? But if I'm in front of a situation like that at least seems new, like a new project, a new relationship, a new thing in my life, um, if you want to go for it, don't worry about like, but what if I'm trying to change things, or is this sudden desire I have to start running because I'm trying to change myself? And so Andy said I shouldn't do that, so I'm not going to start running. In this case, no, right? Like, go running. Well, don't do what you want, right? But don't do what other people are saying I should or shouldn't do. But if you've been trying every different form of exercise, and it's not taking you where you need, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to try running again, still go for it and see what happens, you're going to realize it. And again, that's super important that even though I have experience and I've been doing this for many years, I'm no different from anyone else, you know. There's no levels to this. There's just experience. And in one moment, the most experienced person in the world may be activated and triggered, and the most person who's just started their inner journey has a sudden moment of total intuition and insight and says something that could have come out of the Buddha's mouth. So in that sense, it doesn't even matter whether you have experience or not. The point is that there's an equality, there's a connection, there's a community, and a trust in each other. And if I trust you, which is an extension of trusting myself, but if I trust you, then you're going to find this on your own, right? And at best, or at most, I offer it, and then it's your choice. And you get to decide what you do with it.
Can I ask you one more question that just
Yeah,
came
sure, I
up?
can stay as long as you want.
It's really good because it has to do what you're talking right now. Is what about the acceptance versus setting some boundaries towards someone who's mean or has a um identities like a narcissist or a manipulative person?
Mhm,
Isn't it healthy to not accept and agree with their behavior?
mhm, mhm. Yeah. I only went there briefly, but I said like, okay, the first post is like stop harm, Um, right? Because it's really complicated. But let's imagine, okay, that a person is in front of a situation where there is this other actor, this other person in their life who is invading their boundaries in small ways or in big ways. And let's say that this is a tendency that's happened over their life, right? And the tendency so far has been that they kind of shy away, the invasions keep happening, and eventually it stops somehow, or they leave, or something happens. But then they find themselves in the same situation, just with a different person. Uh, yeah, maybe what that person needs is to stand up for themselves and to assert the boundary. Yes, this I would like to make it clear. Yeah, nothing about what I've said says don't do that, right? Um, okay, because a boundary in the depths doesn't actually have anything to do with the other person, right? It's about me. And so I'm not changing things as much as I'm responding in a new way to the way that things are, right? There's part of me that has allowed, that has fallen into these dynamics where it's invaded, it feels imposed on, it feels unlistened to, all of these things. I'm now relating with that in a different way, right? Um, but even then, where is this all leading, right? Can I just go through life and just assert the boundaries in all the places and then, like I'm safe behind all my boundaries and all this? No, this is leading towards something much more like integration, but that is a long road. And I kind of was mentioning that about like the shadow in me, the shadow in you, they're not so dissimilar, right? Even in these extreme cases where this person is the one invading my boundaries, right? But yeah, on a practical level, that first post, okay, do not do more harm, do not allow more harm to continue. So yeah, in that case, assert your fucking boundaries. um, And if the moment has come, the moment has come. And this is not to say that the times before in your life when you didn't, you did something wrong and you should have done, because again, that's just another form of non-acceptance. Um, so yeah, it's this kind of being in tune, being conscious, being aware, just curious about yourself. Okay, I've taken these actions. Maybe I've even tried to change some things. Maybe I was doing it from a place of non-acceptance. Okay, no problem. This topic doesn't say if you do that, you're a terrible person and you failed. No, uh, it's more like a reference point to kind of reflect on. Okay, I did that. I was in non-acceptance. What wasn't I accepting? How is that related to me? Um, what's going on in my inner world? And to follow that thread. But yeah, certainly on the daily level, on the human level, sometimes there are things that you need to do. Like I said, that's complicated and I didn't want to get into it too much. Um, but I hope that clears it up at least a little bit. Like if you feel the fact that you're presenting this question might suggest that there is some boundary in your life that you feel needs to be created or upheld or reinforced. Um, if that is how you feel right now, listen to that feeling. If you want to, then see what happens, you know? Um, uh, please don't take this topic as a mandate of anything that you should do or anything that you shouldn't do. Really, what it's saying more than anything is listen to yourself first. And if in this part of your journey, listening to yourself, or in this particular topic, listening to yourself is hard or even impossible, then be attentive to what's happening in the external because that is reflecting something, right? So, like these situations happen, I can see something in it. But then, these situations inside, I can listen to them before even engaging with the world, you know. And beyond all of that, compassion for where you are in this moment. Even if you're running around trying to change everything, all the compassion to you, right? Um, take this conference and these words more as like something to think about. I'm not saying this is the truth and you must do it. Um, no, that would be silly.
Thank you, Andy. I think that's a really beautiful way to really close it up and bring it all together. That at the end is really trusting yourself. I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, so I'm gonna share a little bit about what we do. So you know, like Andy just shared about our retreats. And in our retreats, we are there. We support people to really go and trust themselves a little bit more. Our retreats are, we have them in like 10 countries in Europe. Let me think about it. So it's in Italy, in Belgium, in Norway, in Finland, in Germany, in Spain, in Turkey. I'm missing some, but they're not coming right now, but it's okay. I'm gonna send you a link so you can really go and see if you're interested to come to one of our retreats. And right now is really beautiful because we have a special offer for the end of the summer. So if you decide to come, you're gonna get an extra discount from for 2 nights it will be 18% and for 3 nights it will be at 20%. So if you're interested, just write to the one that is sending you messages, or maybe it's probably me, or if you have a contact directly from one of our gatherers, you can also ask them and they are going to give you more information. We also have beautiful integration spaces online. If you are going through something hard right now, or if you even went to one retreat with us or with someone else, and now you're seeing something is moving, I cannot really integrate this. I really invite you to go and look up our integration sessions. And also, we have some health consultations. So if you're thinking about coming to one of our retreats, but you're not sure, maybe I need something, maybe I have this medication and I'm not sure how is it going to work in the retreat, or I have something really physical, like Farah was talking about 2 weeks ago. It's physical, but I can feel it's not only physical, maybe something emotional is moving. I also invite you to go there, see if it's something for you, and then maybe book a session. All the people that were here today, you're gonna get a message from me maybe tomorrow morning early. You're gonna get a message with all the links below so you can read up more about yourself. You have any questions, I'm here for you. Really, really happy that you were here today. Thank you for being so present, so open. It was really an honor being here with all of you. I hope to see you in the next 2 weeks. I think so. Yeah, in 2 weeks. That is the 24th of September. So I have to see you there. I wish you a beautiful evening and a huge hug and a kiss from the bottom of my heart. Then bye bye. Have a
Okay.
beautiful evening. Bye, Andy. Thank you so much. Bye.